Okay, we're live, guys. Thank you very much for everybody who's waiting for us in the live chat. Thank you very much, everybody who's going to be watching us later on or who's going to be joining us down the line. I really appreciate everyone joining me. I've got someone that I've had on the show before, and I'm very happy to have him back on the show. We're discussing the Citizenship Amendment Bill that has been passed in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha and is now headed to the Supreme Court. And we're going to be talking to him about figuring out whether the bill passes or not in the Supreme Court. So please help me welcome back to the show, Ishkaran Singh Bhandari. Ishkaran, welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and I'm looking forward to a long-form discussion where we can, discuss the legality as well as as I say, it's a three-part thing in Constitution Amendment Bill. The need for the bill, the justification, and the legality. And I think somehow all three flow together. So in that sense, it's good that we will be able to have a discussion on it, and those interested can understand all these aspects, because the most frequent question I'm hearing from Twitter is, everybody on Twitter is this, is it constitutional?
Right.
Because that's the stand Congress and all opposition parties have taken, that you are passing this bill, but it won't be constitutional. So because their last line of defense is the constitutionality or the constitutional challenge in the Supreme Court, that's why there is a lot of anxiety in people supporting this bill, whether it would be constitutional. And you see reams of articles in global media saying that it's unconstitutional. In fact, they're going way further than unconstitutional. They're saying you're making a particular community, Muslims in this case, second-class citizens. Some articles suggesting that you have started the 1934-35 Nazi-era laws. So all that scaremongering, along with it not being constitutional, along with West Bengal and Kerala, two governments saying that it won't apply, we won't let it apply in our state, which if we discuss later, I say is not possible for them because we are not US, we can't have sanctuary cities.
Right.
But all that, it has the battle actually now lies in the Supreme Court. Once the government made up its mind, it has the numbers. Today, the government has the numbers to pass any simple parliamentary law. In fact, I would go as far as to say they have the numbers today to pass any constitution. One second, I will put my phone on silent. Today, it has the numbers to pass constitutional amendments also. Parliament will not be a challenge for this government over the next 4 years.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head really well with the whole fear-mongering thing, because I feel like it's getting to a level where it's so dishonest that it's not helping anybody at the end of the day. I watched a section that Ravish Kumar did on his NDTV channel, and he's comparing the Citizenship Amendment Bill to Auschwitz. He's saying, remember what happened in 1934, and people were put in gas chambers, and this is what the CAB in the end. Yeah, look it up. He's talking about like Auschwitz with this Citizenship Amendment Bill. And I'm like, okay, you're not saying 2 + 2 = 4, but you're saying here's 2, here's 2, maybe add a addition sign in the middle. What does that make? Like, he's kind of hinting towards that kind of stuff. And if you're coming, I can understand that you're coming out and saying that I have problems with the Citizenship Amendment Bill. I understand that. But to come out and say that Citizenship Amendment Bill equals Nazi, I mean, come on, man. What are you doing here? You're just trying to scare people.
There is a good thumb rule that anytime somebody brings Nazism in an argument, because it use pejorative words, or especially words which have a dark history behind them. So very easy, Nazism, fascism, dictatorship, blah, 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 blah. To answer that squarely, firstly, not one single existing Muslim loses a centimeter of right that he had before passing of this bill. Not a centimeter of a right is lost because of that. So leave alone it being a gas chamber. So actually, this bill is not touching existing population at all. All it does is it regulates and gives a faster procedure of naturalization to certain category of people. That is all this bill does. So this fear-mongering that you are doing, this tactic that they are doing is happening for the last 5 years. Till 5 years, you were saying that India is the unsafest place on planet Earth for minorities. There is mob lynching. there is intolerance, there is award wapsi, and today you want Muslims of Muslim majority countries to be brought into India, which is the unsafest place in the world for Muslims. Hypocrisy is stunning, and it's shameless. You just all these people, Ravi Sharma, if you go, or anybody else, just see their debates over the last 5 years. I have been on multiple debates on every platform, literature festivals, TV debates, discussing India is unsafe for minorities by this gang. If it is so unsafe, and if you firmly believe it is so unsafe, then why would you want more Muslims to come to India?
That's the amazing part, right? That's the amazing part. And we'll come to sort of all of these arguments one by one. But what I want to start a little bit about with is something that all of these people are saying now that the CAB is heading to the Supreme Court. One thing that all of these publications are saying when they're publishing articles, when they're creating videos, they're all saying that this is unconstitutional because it violates Article 14. Because what Amit Shah said in the parliament was that there's this reasonable classification that is permissible in Article 14. You can use this reasonable classification to relax Article 14's rules, which is what has happened with provisions for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, right? So, but they're saying that Article 14 is violated with the Citizenship Amendment Bill, and so it will get struck down by the Supreme Court. So, how much truth there is to that?
See, firstly, I presume your audience is an audience of non-lawyers. So I will just basically explain. Article 14 says right to equality. Why do you need to say this right to equality? Because daily laws are made which treat different people differently. Like, I'll give you one example. We have progressive taxation, right? If you make 1 lakh rupees, you pay X tax. If you make 10 lakh rupees, you pay 20% tax. You are treating people unequally. Why not only 5% tax for everybody?
Yeah.
Because the reason you treat people making more money, because people making more money are a separate category. So basically, Article 14 in simpler language is an article of classification. How do you classify people and how do you treat people? Because every government needs to make classifications for everything, including something as basic as taxation, right? So you have classification of everything. This article says two parts effectively, that equals cannot be treated unequally. So if you and me are equal in all material aspects, we cannot be treated unequally. At the same time, it says unequals can't be treated equally, because if you and me are not equal, but we are treated equally, that is also a discrimination. For example, that is how you have all these scheduled caste and scheduled tribe laws, where you said historically these people faced a deprivation. So they are unequal in the workforce today because they did not have the access to education which some others had. So making special provisions for them. Because if you treat them absolutely equally, then that is also discrimination. So that is the foundational principle. Equals can't be treated unequally and unequals can't be treated equally.
Okay.
Now, when we come to this law, daily, as I said, classifications are made because the society has to be divided and you have to make narrow laws, tailored laws for a class of people. So what does this article do now? This article says that there is a classification that majority and minority are different classes. So this law says that Pakistan is a theocratic state, has Islam as an official religion. So minorities of Pakistan is one class and majorities are one class. Now this minority is not only Hindu and Sikh or Jain or Buddhist. This minority is also Christians. This minority is also Parsis. So they are saying the class we are dealing with is minorities. Same, they say Bangladesh, a theocratic state where there is active discrimination. It's a state with which we have friendly relationships. So I won't say how bad the discrimination is, but even property rights, how property laws have been weaponized against Hindus and Sikhs. You study the cases there, you will see that it's been up. Even basic property laws have been weaponized against Hindus and Sikhs. And then you come to Afghanistan. I don't think so. In Taliban, I need to say anything on
Yeah.
discrimination because
Yeah.
so this law is treating a class of people who are minorities
Yeah.
in these three countries and treating them differently than majority, which is Muslim, which is at the heart of this law. And I don't see this reasonable classification can be any problem to anybody.
Right.
Classification, if I may add one more line, is done in Indian Constitution. In India, Article 25 onwards does treat minorities and gives them certain rights. Or you see right to education, where they made a constitutional amendment in the constitution, so they are allowing minorities to have educational institute where this law does not apply.
Yep.
So what they are doing is they're treating minorities as a separate class. This law is doing the same thing. It's treating minorities as a separate class. Only now, this time, the minorities are Hindus and Sikhs, and that is what the entire problem is for these people objecting to the law.
Yeah.
They want to get the benefits, but using the same rationale, because Hindus, Sikhs, Jain, Buddhists, I'm not repeating all six again.
Right.
These minorities are minorities in Islamic majority states, so you're making a law for minorities of Islamic majority state, and they have a problem. There's nothing more than that in this problem.
So in the bill, by excluding Shias and Ahmadiyas, does it make the bill anti-Muslim and by that token unconstitutional?
See, first, if we go into the question of Shias
Sure.
and Ahmadiyas, Wahhabi fundamentalists say Ahmadiyas are not Muslims. Ahmadiyas themselves don't say they are not Muslims.
Yes, exactly.
So if Ahmadiyas are saying
Ahmadiyas were at the forefront of creating Pakistan. Zafrullah Khan wrote the Lahore resolution, which gave the idea of Pakistan. He had huge support from the Ahmadiyya community.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The only country which is secular is India.
Yeah.
And they thought they wanted a theocratic state. They got it. And I have no sympathy for them. Frankly, I have sympathy for them. But we are not talking about sympathy or personal identity. We are talking about law. So legally, I'll answer this. Karma could say you chose Pakistan, you were at the forefront. Karma is coming back. But let's talk about legally. Legally, Ahmadiyas are not saying they are not Muslims.
Yeah.
Shias definitely are not saying they are not Muslims, right? Indian state treats Ahmadiyas and Shias both as Muslims. So our laws have to be made as per how we classify people. And in our Western world, I don't think so. US Ahmadiyas can be treated as non-Muslims, or non-theocratic Wahhabi state is not saying that they are non-Muslims. So if there is a fundamentalist view of people in power in Islam of deciding that X people who say they are Muslims are not Muslims, or not pure enough to be Muslims, or are not, that is not our problem.
Yeah.
Really not our problem. That is their internal fight. That's an internal fight between Muslims. Who knows tomorrow if Ahmadiyas come to power in Pakistan, they could declare some other sect not to be Muslim.
Yeah, that's the Sunnis are non-Muslims now.
That's not our problem. No, that's their internal.
Does that exclusion violate any parts of the Constitution, like including certain people, but excluding certain people that you can make a decent argument that they are also being discriminated against?
See, if we stick to Ahmadiyas and Shias, if India, supposing, was treating Shias as non-Muslims and was treating Ahmadiyas as non-Muslims, then probably you could make that argument.
Okay.
We have to go by our local law, not by the junk peddled by Pakistan or Bangladesh. So our law treats them as Muslims, right? In Indian law, they are not called Hindus. They get all the benefits of being a Muslim minority, right?
Right.
So when they are getting all the benefits of being a Muslim minority, when you are and are classified as Muslims, even in Pakistan till 74, I think they were classified as Muslims. It only Zia-ul Haq Bhutto, I think, changed their classifications from Muslims, and then 80s some discriminatory laws came in. So even Pakistan for at least 30 years recognized them as Muslims. Yeah. So this is an internal dispute among them. That does not, or for example, there are various denominations in Hinduism, right? Who sometimes have various views, but they're all Hindus.
Yeah.
So our views, they're all Muslims. if they're having a fight amongst themselves, that's their internal issue. That doesn't affect the legal position in India that they are Muslims. So only Muslims are not covered by this. Other minorities are covered by this.
Yeah,
That
and I feel like to an extent as well, Ishkaran, doesn't a country have the right to dictate its immigration policy or decide what its immigration policy is going to be? Because the reason I say that is because you might remember that I think a day or so ago, the USCIRF, the United States Council on International Religious Freedom, published a statement that they were very deeply concerned about what this bill that India has passed, which was very funny. Funny for two reasons. First reason is that the USCIRF is in bed with the worst evangelical organizations, consistently turn a blind eye to the shady activities of these organizations around the world. Second thing why it's funny is that the United States, there's a couple of research paper recently that came out that garnered a lot of attention in the US, that the United States actively discriminates against immigrants from India and China in terms of giving them green cards, permanent residency. So you have a country which is quite discriminatory. I'm not using the word discriminatory, or uses its discretion, let's say, uses its discretion in deciding who gets citizenship, who doesn't get citizenship, who gets green card, who doesn't get green card. So when you can do that on your own volition freely, why is your organizations coming and writing statements about India?
If I give one line answer, because we talk about them.
Right.
What is the relevance of whatever USCIRF says?
Yeah.
See, we have United States now giving a longer answer since we are discussing. Otherwise, I think their opinion is junk. When they were fighting Russia said we are equal, and they treat their African Americans very bad, so they're an unequal society. And we had a huge discussion. If you read that time, Russia's biggest defense was that they don't treat African Americans as on par with them, and worse language and way stronger language in 40s, 50s, and 60s, and which was, you read literature, the case in US in 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
As recently as that, right? Segregation was happening, right? So US, then second part, anyways, today's world, Saudi Arabia heads human rights panel of United Nations.
Yeah.
With active support of United Nations. What are we talking about religious freedom or non-freedom? When you allow Saudi Arabia, which is basically a client state.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, they're all on these bodies.
But chairing the body, not even on the body. Okay, so if you're a part of the globe, you have to be in a body, but you're chairing the human rights body of United Nations, Saudi Arabia, and basically with the patronage of US, they buy all the kingdom survives because it pays what I say hafta to US in the form of buying arms and ammunition, right?
Yeah.
So, Saudi Arabia is chairing that panel, and then you're talking about religious freedom and religious equality and religious rights. And then Trump recently passed a bill that, what was it? 7 years you can't, Iran and these 5, 6, 7 countries, forgotten. So 7 countries.
7 countries it was, yeah. That they were not allowed to come in, yeah.
Not allowed to come in, get a green card, and we had all those protests. So what are they talking about? That's why I said my short answer is their opinion is not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah.
If they do the business of sanction and economics, I don't think so that's happening, because it can't happen. They need us as much as we need them. So it's entertaining for Indians and this who's a Jamaat of Indians who yoga becomes famous in US, discover yoga. Once that I saw this ad on some channel that this green thalis.
Oh yeah, those plates, yeah.
किसी भी जगह गांव में भी जाओगे ना इंडिया में, you will say being served on those green leaves in any mandir, gurdwara, common thing, right? And now it's the in thing. You know, we see the problem is we look too much at the West. We give too much weightage to their opinion.
Yeah.
If our economy is good and we are prospering, their opinion matters not. If our economy is not prospering, then their opinion will matter a lot. Like Pakistan, I was seeing a video of 1988. Their army chief said that army chief in Pakistan can't be appointed without US sanction.
Wow.
So he said, what's the freedom? He said, I was the number 1 name sent on the list. And 6 was made because the top 3 were vetoed by US. That person who was the head of ISI was wanting to become army chief. So I think US opinion doesn't matter if you are strong yourself.
All right, so we got a question here on the super chat, and I want to let's sort of dive into it in a second. So we'll take your question in a second, Jamin. But let me first just say that people are saying that it's only Hindus that are included and so on that are included, and Muslims it's anti-Muslim. But what's important to remember is that another thing that people forget is that the regular ways to get asylum or naturalization in the country in India are still available, right? It's not like they've shut off all the other ways of naturalization and all the other ways of getting asylum in India, and they're only now going to be getting naturalization through this CAB, right? So there's that also, and the people that are escaping persecution or strife in Tamil Nadu, a lot of the Tamils that are escaping into India, a lot of them are Hindus as well, but they are not included in the CAB as well. To say that it's been created to only favor Hindus, that argument doesn't hold up in that sense either, does it?
See, 2 points on this. Firstly, we have to understand naturalization is different from a natural citizen.
Right.
So, naturalization, every country can have its laws. I'll come to this part later, how different countries have different laws of naturalization. Second part is that you are not discriminating, because not only are you dealing only with minorities of these three countries, you are dealing with minorities of these three countries who have a border with you.
Right.
And secondly, are facing the religious persecution. Over the years, lot of Tamil Hindus have been given citizenship. Today, the situation is perfectly okay there. In fact, a lot of Tamil Hindus have gotten back their property, and people want to go back where they have their business, property, room, right? And because the situation is okay, there is no need. If supposing, and I hope situation never becomes bad again, if situation was bad, they would have been included.
Yeah.
But when there is no need, we are not including Hindus or Sikhs from London or from US, because there is no need. No, if there was the second part of Article 14 is rational nexus, reasonable. The nexus of the problem has to be with the solution.
Right.
When there is no problem, why would you legislate when there for a solution which is not required? So that is a difference with Sri Lanka. If supposing this law was made in 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s, yes, you would have had to include them. But today, even though at that time also it was a civil war more than a religious persecution, but there was a demand for independence.
Right.
So that's a very different category. But I'm saying even if that category at that time the law was made, you probably would have had to include them. Today, there is no problem. So why would you need a solution which is not required?
Yeah, true. Let's come to one of the most contentious parts of the Citizenship Amendment Bill, and something that people are talking about the most, and which is what is happening in the Northeast, particularly Assam. And there was a question here in the super chat from Jamin Panchal. Jamin was asking, why is Northeast protesting? And for the past couple of days, we've seen things in Assam have gotten quite bad. There've been violent protests and stuff like that. So there's had to be like a small government shutdown over there, and internet services has been suspended for a couple of days. So, what is, in your opinion, Assam's concern in with regards to the CAB? Let's talk about that first. So, what, in your opinion, is Assam's concern? Is that what's going to happen with the CAB, and how much of the concern do you think is justified?
See, Assam has been a problem for a very long time with regard to immigration. So it's not a new problem. First, we have to deal with that fact. Second fact is that flare-ups in Assam are also not a new thing.
Yeah.
You would hear every 2-3 years, flare-ups happen on this issue. In fact, usually these flare-ups, because there was a 15-year Congress government under Tarun Gogoi, so national media refused to cover it, calling it Trini of distance. You had massacres, and this Rajdeep Sardesai's words have caught on, but it was the view of entire Lutyens media. That time it was a very homogeneous group. That it's too far away, so we can't cover it.
Yeah.
So these flare-ups have always happened because Assam is a very ticklish problem. This NRC list has shown that There are 1.9 million people in Assam who are not covered under the NRC list. Whatever happens in tribunal, I do not know what the final numbers would be, because the
Right.
state government has also protested that Supreme Court was monitoring it in a manner that we could not effectively make the list, and they wanted extensions. It didn't happen.
Right.
So Assam has a problem where uh, the original inhabitants 50 years ago, 40 years ago, believe that their culture is being eroded by too much of migration.
Right.
So their problem is predating CAP, is 1970s problem, 1980s problem, and there, yes, the government has assured on the floor of the House that Assam Accord will be strictly complied. If it is strictly complied, I don't see a problem. If the government is unable to comply with it, they will have to make law and they will have to reduce the burden on Assam, because Assam feels that if you have 1 million people, for example, I'm saying, or half a million people who can apply under Citizenship Amendment Bill, that will put a strain on their resources.
Yes.
And that will obviously affect the job market, that will affect everything. My view is different. I say that if you have citizenship of half a million people, for example, who get covered under this, once they are citizens, they are free to roam any place in the country and get jobs anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
In fact, they would migrate into other parts of India much more easily. Right now, they are apprehensive. Some of those who don't have documents are apprehensive that if they step out of Assam or step out of their security zones, how would they get jobs? Every job you need to submit documents, right? Even private jobs, they ask you for your driving license, your PAN card, your Aadhaar before they give you a job, your degree, whatever. And in manual jobs, also they want to see what documentations you have. So I think it might make Assam's burden easier. But yes, it's a ticklish problem which will need to be solved as we go ahead, because Assam has genuine concerns and genuine grievances.
So I think what will be interesting for the BJP government to do as well is that for the BJP state governments to step up and maybe come out and make statements as to, okay, we will also share the burden in absorbing the people that are included under the CAB. So if you make these statements, if you make certain promises to Assam, I don't think the people of Assam are being unreasonable. I think their fears are legitimate. And in keeping those fears in mind, I think what will be a useful step is for these state governments to come out and maybe make certain promises that, all right, you will not have to share the entire burden. We will take some of the people that are covered under the CAB and we'll take care of them. So I think that's something that could be very useful for the BJP governments to do, especially the state governments to do once the CAB kicks in. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about. Oh, I wonder if Ishkaran is stuck. Let's see here. Uh-oh. Let us see. Yeah, it appears that Ishkaran is frozen. So we'll try and get him back into the stream, but it appears that he's frozen for a second. So we'll try to take care of that. Oh, here he is. He's back again. There we go.
All right.
All right. So yeah. So what I was saying, Ishkaran, was that I think it will be beneficial for the BJP state governments to come out and make certain statements and maybe make certain assurances to the people of Assam that so the people that will be included under CAB, the BJP government, state governments will be willing to take part of that burden as well, so that the burden doesn't unduly fall on the people of Assam. I think that's a good way around it, like for the state governments to make certain assurances.
Yeah. See, as I say, two parts. Assam has genuine causes and has had a genuine feeling. It's not something which is new, and we have to respect that. The merits of their argument have to be respected. And why only BJP states? As I said, if they get citizenship, they would themselves, a lot of them, automatically migrate to other states, BJP ruled or non-BJP ruled. Once your documents, you're a naturalized citizen, your documents are as good as any other citizens. So wherever you get an opportunity, from manual labor to white collar jobs to any job, you would go. So some of that will organically happen.
Right.
Where BJP governments need to step in, and where probably is something like they tried to do in Kashmir and they might do in Kashmir is where Maharashtra promised that they would set up investments there. Other governments said that they would buy plots of land, hotels, tourism, whatever investments would be set up.
Right.
Same model would have to be followed on this, because yes, Assam will face the maximum number of people applying for Citizenship Amendment Bill, applying under Citizenship Amendment Bill. So yeah, Assam has a cause of concern, which other states would need to step in. But I don't say it's a burden, because see, end of the day, this line got made, and their civilizational roots are in India.
Yeah.
We could have very easily had 2 more districts here, and 2 more districts of Punjab could have gone, or 2 districts of Rajasthan could have gone, or Gujarat. Anything could have happened, right? So it is a civilizational duty. They are the same people. Their roots are the same. Their culture is the same. The civilization is the same. If they unfortunately suffered a loss, for example, if there is a flood in Bihar or in Kerala, center gives thousands of crores because other states chip in, even states which are landlocked, which never face a flood, they chip in, right? Same way, take it like that problem that other states have to chip in, because these are people who are the same civilization, they're our family, and take it like a flood or any natural disaster in any state, flash floods in this in Uttarakhand or wherever they were. And everybody, the center send in funds. The center will have to send in funds, will have to take care of these people, maybe get them out of Assam, and initially support them in other states till they're on their own feet and they get jobs, etc., etc. So yeah, the state will have to do it, and it is analogous to a natural disaster spending in any one state, where every other state of the India and union taxes step in. Is how I think.
Here's a good question from Ramesh Suresh. He was asking, and I've seen a little bit of confusion about this as well online. He's asking, will this act apply to these minorities from 6 communities entering India after 31st of December 2014? If not, what will be the procedure for them?
There is a cutoff date.
Yeah.
Cutoff date is 31st December. See, this question, I will mix it with some other question I've been asked very often. The other question I'm asked very often, what if people lie and Muslims say that they are one of these 6 communities and come to India? That question gets answered by this question, because there is a cutoff date. Nobody in 2014 knew that this bill was coming. Since they did not know this bill was coming, there was no cause for them to pretend to be something other than what they were and come to India. So you can't pretend. They can't be. Somebody asked me on forgotten the person, that would ISI agents come into India via this route? And that can't happen. That could have happened, supposing it was an ongoing process. Then how do you find out somebody in Pakistan was Hindu, Sikh, or Muslim? He's lying. But that is answered by this question, because you have a firm cutoff date, and with this you had to be in India 6 years prior to this. For 6 years living in India, right? So I don't think so that would be a problem.
So what about persecuted people that are trying to come to India, or that have come to India after the cutoff date?
They will have to they have to seek asylum and apply as the natural procedure. In fact, technically, legally, Muslims are also not barred. They come to India. If supposing, for example, now India, I don't think so a lot of people would be okay with this example, but I'll still give it. If somebody is prosecuted for being a homosexual in Pakistan, in India, now that homosexuality has been decriminalized, like US has given to certain people, Canada has given to certain people for being homosexuals from Islamic majority countries. It would come as they are being prosecuted for their sexual orientation, and that would be a ground for giving asylum if Indian government takes that to be a ground. Western countries take that to be a ground. So that would allow Muslims also to come. So that's what I'm saying. Normal process is there for Muslims and persecuted Sikhs, Hindus, etc., etc. But this shortcut, a faster route to naturalization, is as per the law, and that is because to take care of the second problem I said. What if people lie and come? What if 10,000 people tomorrow show up on your borders saying that we are Hindus, but in fact they are ISI agents? So that's why you need to have a cutoff date.
Another question that comes up very often is that, well, if this principle applies to these people who are being, persecuted and massacred and so on and so forth, then why doesn't it apply to Rohingyas? What my understanding is, and I want to get your thought on this as well, but what I think is this bill, generally speaking, takes care of the people that were hit the hardest from the partition. Right? People that were affected the most with the partition and that have historically sort of suffered in these areas, but have a connection to India.
No, I will differ with you on
Okay.
that. Uh, it does take care of these people. That part I agree with
Sure.
you. It will. Why it doesn't apply to Rohingyas is a different
Okay.
argument. Rohingya is not a border state. They
Right.
come via Bangladesh. These three are border states. That's a part. So our border states, there is a greater crisis for us because they anyways come here.
Right.
Second part is these Muslims. Why can't they stay in a Muslim majority nation, Bangladesh, via which they come?
Yeah.
Why are they coming to India? So that's point number two. And point number three is that, as I said, this law has been tailored for persecuted minorities of Islamic majority nations. This law, why if you bring Rohingyas, which are not a border state, if you bring non-border states, why shouldn't some tribe of Africa
Right.
facing a war with another tribe of Africa be allowed to come in?
Right.
Because if you go into non-border states, then you have to bring in the world. Why today Rohingyas, if some, I'm not knowing the names of all the
Sure.
tribes today facing persecution in Africa, but that happens every 5 years, no? Civil
Right.
wars. They also not be invited to India. So A, border states. B, civilizational roots of border states which are in India. And C, who are in a minority in a majority country. These people, Muslims, Bangladesh is open to them. Why are they wanting to come to India? And there I bring the old thing. Every day one heard that India is the unsafest place. Yet everybody wants to come to India.
Right. Right.
They should just see their own 2-year-old videos where they were saying India is mob lynching, and
Yeah.
if this happens, we will go out of India. And you had Amir Khan and all these actors saying that India is becoming unsafe,
It's too unsafe to live. Yeah.
unsafe to live. So now, why do you want to come to India to live?
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's another question here from Vishnu Anil Kumar, who's asking, wouldn't CAB increase the already increasing unemployment? But I think that sort of misses the mark of what the CAB is trying to accomplish here. What the CAB is trying to accomplish here, it is trying to help people who are stuck in an existential crisis. Employment, fine, it's a genuine concern, but right now the concern is that you have this population of people that are stuck in a very horrible situation, and if they are not taken care of, if they are not brought to India, or not provided safe haven in India, then they will most certainly be exterminated in their countries, in their quote unquote home countries. So that's what is happening here right now. India is trying to fix an existential crisis for a population of people that share civilizational roots with India, so to say. I wonder if you have something to add to that, Ishkaran.
I fully agree with you, but I'll add one more point to this.
Sure.
That is the moral argument and humane argument. I add the economic argument
Right.
in economic question. See, these people, when you say would it lead to more unemployment, these people are already in India. So
Yeah.
they are already working in India. So how does us giving them citizenship change the employment problem? In fact, if anything, these people can now get decent jobs and pay taxes. Else they are all doing hidden jobs.
Right.
So this is not, again, I need to dispel this in people's mind. This is not a bill which is bringing new people into India.
Right.
That is why that question you had earlier of 2014 being cut-off date. Supposing this bill was bringing new people into India, then it could be an economic question that since it's bringing new people into India, would it cause unemployment? This is only dealing with people already in India prior to 2014. So अब वो यहाँ पे रह रहे हैं. So obviously they are eating. Obviously they are doing some work. Else how would they eat?
Right.
So they are already working. So how they will not change your employment market. Only thing I would say is they probably now will pay taxes if they get decent job because as you know and I know and everybody in India knows, sarkar ka tax kahin jata nahi hai. So now they would be contributing.
Yeah.
All of them, if some of them are because of lack of opportunities doing something which is anti-social, now they have a stream to do things which any other citizen does and can be productive citizens. So on
Yeah.
economic, I don't think so. This makes an economic impact of job market.
Right. There was another question, I missed it somewhere in the comments, where they were asking that people that seek asylum, let's say people, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Christians, Parsis that seek asylum after the cutoff date, if they come into India, will the period of citizenship for them will be 11 years, or will it go down to 6? It'll be 11?
It is a normal. See, this is an accelerated procedure for people with the cutoff date.
Okay.
For others, I think would be the same. I don't know, unless they make changes. As far as I have read the bill, it will be the same thing.
Okay.
Procedure is only applied to this specific narrow category which the parliament has defined.
Okay. Soumya Bhatt asks, can those who get citizenship under the CAB apply for it for their families back in Pakistan and Bangladesh?
Cutoff date.
Okay.
See, that's it's a good question. But if you are a citizen, can you bring your relatives in? I think even it has slowed down substantially since Trump has come into the picture. Earlier it was not a process. So in India, for you to be able to bring your family into India will not be so easy, in the sense it will not, you can't apply under this law. For this law, there is a cutoff date already.
Okay.
2014. So anybody, this I think was so many people are asking this, please understand. This cutoff date is a material date. Anybody applying under the beneficial provisions of this law has to be a person who was here before December 2014.
Right.
If you come after 2014 December, then this legislation, you're not covered under the scope of this legislation.
Okay. So in this case, when this goes to the Supreme Court and it's going to be heard in the Supreme Court, apart from the stuff that we've discussed, can you think of any other arguments that might be presented against the CAB in the Supreme Court?
You will have the wildest of fears being brought in. You will have some lawyers saying that this is leading to detention camps and concentration camps, and that you cannot exclude benefit on the ground of religion. They would argue that under Indian law, by not bringing in persecuted Muslims, you are violating the Indian law of equality. And you are making a law only for your vote bank politics, because as a party in power, this is your vote bank.
Right.
So that's more of a political argument. See, legally, as I said, to my mind, this is a rational classification. Their job, see, a class is excluded, right? So that has crossed the first hurdle. Not a case where we are saying no class is excluded and you are only feeling you're excluded.
Right.
So Article 14 challenge has two parts. First, you show that you are excluded. Very often cases come where a party says it's excluded, but the government says it's not excluded.
Right.
Hyper-technically, they believe they're excluded. In this case, that exclusion is a matter of fact. X class, that is Muslims in this case, is excluded. Now comes whether this exclusion or this classification is valid or it is not valid. There I say it is a valid classification because you are dealing with minorities as a class. But expect it to be a stiff battle. I don't expect it to be an easy battle, and especially it will become a tougher and tougher battle after NRC.
Right, definitely.
Then it will become a... See, this law on its own is a challenge to this law on its own is one thing. After NRC comes, then you would see that concentration camp arguments and every other argument starting. That will be a very separate battle.
Yeah, that's true. Mahalingam Kaushik is asking, can the government extend the cutoff date as a later bill and an amendment? Or will the government even look to do that?
Uh, a good question. And this is my fear.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what my fear is. A subsequent government has the power to amend. What if they extend the cutoff date? That is one problem. What if they increase the categories of people who can come in? That can also happen.
Yeah.
In that's what I'm saying. I don't want to put a note of, it's a note of caution. Your question, which is a good question, I feel, what if a subsequent cutoff date is increased? It's a very common thing. In any beneficial law, they very often increase the cutoff dates, and that depends on the political situation is at that time.
Yeah.
So yes, that can happen. Legally, why 2014? Why not 2013? 2012? Or why not 2018? Reason is because they started talking about bringing this bill in 2015. So they said, "Ab ISI agents na aaye." So that is political argument. But 3 years down the line, or 8 years down the line, yes, you could extend the cutoff date. That is a problem, and bigger problem, bigger note of caution. They could say that a new government with a different bent of mind could say that we include
Muslims as well.
We include other categories also in it, and turn the entire law on its head. That's it's this bill is going to have issues going forward also. It's not a simple solution. Anytime you talk about migration and populations and citizenships, it's not going to be easy. That fear, that note of caution, I have to be intellectually honest and tell you that could happen.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Like
there's benefits, but you never know what happens if a different government comes to mind with a different bent of mind and different politics, and they decide, well, this is politically expedient for us to do at this moment.
See, 2027, they could come and say, or 2026, they could come and say that Indias are included, Shias are included, or they could do a whole hog and say anybody who's Muslim who feels persecuted and is in India can be given. So that's the power of the parliament, and power of the parliament is a twin-edged sword. So that can happen. Easier as we were discussing, right? But they could whole hog also.
Yeah, that's true. And then it comes to that point as well, right? Like, I know that the bill has gone to the Supreme Court for discussion, but to what extent does the parliament have the power to formulate these laws and have these laws stick? Like, because I think the parliament has been given certain powers to create laws about citizenship, right? And to have certain powers about deciding citizenship. So if the parliament has this power, and this bill, which decides citizenship for certain people that are already present in India, has been passed by both houses of the parliament, then does the Supreme Court have much of a say in the matter?
Okay, that's a very vast question.
I'm throwing everything at you.
So that's a power of parliament is literally unlimited. It's sovereign and it's supreme. So I'll try to answer it in very basic ways without getting into technicalities, because in technicalities, this is a 2-hour discussion on the power of parliament and the power of Supreme Court to do judicial review. So parliament has the power to pass any law. Then comes a constitutional amendment. Till Keshavanand Bharati, if a law was passed by parliament, the court would review it and say, is it violating a provision of the constitution or not? It had to be valid to the constitution. And since constitution is the bigger law, and a law is here, it can't surpass the constitution. If supposing a principle of constitution said you have to be given a fair and reasonable trial before you're put into jail, that's Article 21, right? So a law which violates that will be struck down because constitution is higher. Then at that time, parliament had the power to amend the constitution. Parliament would amend the constitution and remove that obstacle. Then Supreme Court in Ishkaran Bharti came that there is a heart and soul of constitution, basically called basic structure.
Right.
It put a limitation on the power of parliament to amend the constitution. It says you can amend the constitution, but you can't alter its basic structure.
Right.
For example, you can't go from universal adult franchise to only people with property can vote. Or you can't go from, which used to be property rights and voting in 17th, 18th, 19th century. Or you can't go from everybody having one vote to a certain category of people having 20,000 votes.
Right.
So those basic structure, I'm talking about election aspects. Other aspects also, they are basic structure. So now, when a law is passed, and the Supreme Court has been expansionist in 90s onwards. So technically, Parliament can pass any law. It has no fetters to its power to pass a law. Because Supreme Court now reviews the law on two aspects. One aspect is it violating a right in the Constitution or any right in the Constitution? And is it at a higher level violating a basic structure of the Constitution? Though technically basic structure only comes for constitutional amendments, but in flourish and expansionist judgment, they say law cannot violate basic structure, but I think that's neither here nor there. Okay. So yes, Parliament can pass the law. Now Supreme Court. If Supreme Court tomorrow finds that this law is violative of fundamental rights, then yes, they can strike it down. They have the power. But as we were discussing, I do not think that this law violates any fundamental right. And then we are back to the circle. Supposing the Supreme Court says it violates a fundamental right, then the Parliament again has the power to change the law or to change the Constitution by an amendment and re-bring the law. Right. Like they did in the case of recently SC/ST judgment. Supreme Court passed a judgment on SC/ST in 2017 and they brought an ordinance. 2018. They brought an ordinance. Or Sham case where they said Muslim women have to be given alimony and etc. And Rajiv Gandhi overruled the judgment. So overruled is the wrong word. Change the basis of the judgment.
Change the basis of the law, yeah.
So yeah, you can do that. You can. So in the end, but then again, so that's what I'm saying, that becomes a slightly circular thing.
Right.
But I don't think so that will happen because with the full majority government, Parliament, end of the day, is the will of the people.
Right.
So if the government is very firm, even if Supreme Court finds something to be tinkered here, the government can reintroduce a bill, legislation or ordinance and tackle that. So not such a huge problem.
Okay. Let me ask you something, like compared to the other countries on the planet, how, that's something that we've heard quite often in India over the past few years, like of judicial activism. How activist do you think the Indian judiciary is as compared to other judiciaries around the world?
I think, firstly, I would say Indian judiciary is by far the strongest judiciary in the world, in the sense that appointments, see, where does power come from? Power comes from the power to appoint. Indian judiciary appointments are made by judiciary itself.
Yeah.
As let's say a very high IS officer. Highest is what? In IPS, Director General of Police.
Right.
A Director General of Police today cannot appoint without an exam, a transparent exam, a physical which is recorded by video camera, even a constable, leave alone an inspector or deputy commissioner of police, right? The Home Secretary of India, that's the highest rank IS officer for Home Department, or Finance Secretary of India, or Cabinet Secretary of India,
right,
cannot appoint an sub-divisional magistrate, which is the lowest rank. They don't have the power. Supreme Court Chief Justice or Collegium can appoint a Supreme Court judge. That's like a DGP having the power to appoint a DCP who will become the DGP.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what the law is. The 5 people, the Collegium, can appoint a Supreme Court judge whom, once they appoint, they know as per seniority, 5 years, 7 years down the line, can become the Chief Justice of India. So you are appointing cabinet level positions without exams. Okay, exams, leave it. We can't have exams at such a high post,
Sure.
but without any openness, transparency.
Right.
So then, if I have the power to appoint my successor, that's and judiciary does not tolerate that in any other department. You can't have a police commissioner appointing even a constable, as I said. Much less police commissioner appointing a special commissioner of police who 3 years down the line will be the commissioner in his own turn. No.
Wow. Yeah.
So that is the power here. So that in that sense, judiciary is extremely strong in India because you have the appointment in your hand.
Right. True.
Then there cannot be a single case of corruption registered on judiciary without the sanction of the Chief Justice of India. That's also, in a way, needed also because you can't have politicians
keep interfering. I mean, that's what we're seeing with the police to an extent, right? Like we keep hearing problems about a criminalization of politics, and secondly, that a lot of these politicians, when they come to power and they have all these criminal charges against them, they devise ways to gain more of a control over the police so that the police doesn't come after them and the police does what they basically say. So I think that some safeguards are needed.
You need safeguards. I'm saying, see, I'm not saying that like US, the Supreme Court has no role in who will be the next judge. It is Senate, Parliament, etc., etc. India, we can't have that position. But India, we definitely need at least a body of people which includes non-judges deciding who would be new judges. You can't have only judges deciding it. That becomes a very insulated world where you like it or not, judges are human. There is scratch my back sort of thing which comes into picture. So in that sense, they're very activist and they're very strong.
Right. Strong. Let's take one more question from Soumya. Soumya says, from 2019, if people want refuge and then citizenship of India, is there a process of differentiation based on their religion or on the other criteria? I don't think so, right?
No, there is no process of differentiation based on their religion in an ordinary normal procedure. You will have to apply as any other religion
through the regular channels.
There is nothing after 2019. Though there is, if you are you can get an OCI card if one of your parents is a citizen of India, or those OCI rules and all. So differentiation between an absolute stranger to India versus somebody who has ancestral roots in India. If both your parents are, it's easier. If one of your parents is, you can be, unless your parent is from one of those countries which are not allowed. So all that is there. Yeah, it will help you a bit faster. It will at least give you OCI card. It will allow you to work in India. It will allow you to. So effectively, it will give you a lot of benefits of citizenship.
Right.
That you will get.
Okay, and finally, let me ask you that now that the bill's going to the Supreme Court, let me put you on the spot, and let me ask you if I had to ask you to give it a percentage number, like what percentage confidence do you have that the bill sails through the Supreme Court review? What percentage would you give it?
It reminds me of an old not old lawyer. He's not the first Attorney General of India.
Right.
Once he was arguing a case on wager and bet.
Right.
What's the difference between a wager and a bet? So what is the difference between wager and a game of skill and gambling?
Right.
So he said. He was asked the question: how do you define gambling? Because gambling is barred, but a game of skill is allowed.
Yeah.
So he was asked that. He said the biggest gamble in India is when you come to Supreme Court and argue a case because nobody knows the outcome. So if you have to define gambling, the article under which you come to Supreme Court is a gamble.
Right.
But that said, if you want, I'm sure this bill will pass.
Okay.
What happens to NRC? We'll have to see what bill is brought and what is the cocktail of NRC and Citizenship Amendment Bill. Then I'll be able to answer you the full question. But this bill on its own, if challenged, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I feel like if someone thinks that the Citizenship Amendment Bill is contentious, I feel like the NRC will be a lot more contentious when that discussion comes around, right?
This is not even a starter point. When NRC comes and the form it takes, that would be contention without getting into it. See, NRC now affects people already in India who don't have papers.
Yeah.
There, the problem would be very different, depending on how the bill is framed.
Yeah.
That's a separate debate. Yeah, that
So I
would
think,
be.
yeah, whenever and however the bill is framed, it's going to affect the discussion around NRC as well. What the government decides to do with NRC will really affect what the discussion around NRC is going to be, and I'm sure we'll speak about it when the NRC comes around as well.
Absolutely.
So, other than that, Ishkaran, I really want to thank you for coming on today and answering all of these questions. A lot of people had been asking questions. A lot of people had doubts about what's going to happen when, or what are the arguments going to be when the bill goes to the Supreme Court. So, really, I think people really appreciate you coming on and explaining things so clearly.
Thank you for having me. It was nice to discuss in peace and try to answer the questions of people. And I hope that people, once they hear it, they find out some of the things they have been asking, thinking, even asking me also. So it's good that people hear it in depth and don't have any fear mongering.
Right.
So somebody is complimenting you and a second is compliment. That good job.
No, thank you very much, people. I appreciate it. And again, I think that's one of the reasons why it was good to have you on today, because it's to alleviate some of the fear mongering and to reduce some of the fear mongering, because there's so much misinformation about it out there in the media, particularly the mainstream media, that it's not surprising, but it's out there. So I think it's important to help diminish that to whatever extent that we can. And your answers today have been very helpful in throwing a lot of light on the problem. So thanks again for doing it, guys. Again, the episode is going to be available as soon as we're done recording this. The podcast will be available in the evening, so you can listen to it if you don't have time to watch it as well. One more thing, Ishkaran, if you are not aware, Ishkaran is also on YouTube. He produces videos, and he's been doing a couple of long form videos where he's been talking about various issues, contentious issues, and answering questions and explaining them in great detail. So I think those videos will be very informative for people that are trying to sort of get into nitty-gritties of various laws and various cases happening in the Supreme Court. So I'd really recommend that you go check out his channel. His description of the channel is provided. His channel link is provided in the description of this video. Make sure to go check it out. You will not be disappointed. So make sure to go ahead and do that. And again, once again, thanks for doing this today, Ishkaran. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Other than that, guys, make sure to subscribe, like, all of that fun stuff. We'll see you for the next episode. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys soon.